And this is a pretty big deal. There have been different whistleblowers and other people that I have spoken to, sources that I've spoken to off the record, who have told me for the past several years that the University of Pittsburgh was a major hub for illegal fetal trafficking in partnership with Planned Parenthood, and that was under law enforcement investigation. But these FOIA documents that we've just released in the past week are the first written official documentary confirmation that there is an active federal law enforcement investigation of what's happening in Pittsburgh.
Hello and welcome to the Anna Film Scoop.
I'm Anne McElhenney.
And I'm 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤.
And it's nearly Christmas.
It's beginning.
It's really looking a lot like Christmas. And look at me wearing all these clothes. The weather is the weather is shockingly bad in Venice. It's
Southern
apparently
California.
They're promising it's going to start. There'll be a light drizzle later.
The horror.
The horror.
The humanity.
Absolutely extraordinary. And the temperature dropping to, I don't know, just around 20 degrees centigrade, which is
probably about 70.
In the low 70s, which is horror. Shocking and horrible. Just horrible, actually. But
enough gloating,
yes,
please. Enough gloating to the people in Minnesota. So today is the last time we'll be talking to you before the holidays, before Christmas Day, before people wind down. But fear not, we will have two special episodes looking back at the year to hold you over till we're back in January. Yes. Hopefully, there won't be too many breaking news stories that we have to interrupt our holiday for to talk to you about. Certainly, the news has not stood still. The news never stands still because we're descending into more madness every day, it looks like. We look in the show today, we look at Hunter Biden and his latest stunt that proves if you're a Democrat or a Biden, then you can get away with anything.
And because DEI is a grift, of course, it attracts the world's best grifters. We bring you the latest corrupt details.
Yes, I mean you could have a whole program full of those DEI grifting.
Yes, yes, it's a massive growing industry.
And actually, the state of Oklahoma is abolishing DEI.
Good for them.
Not before time. We look at how the oppression, awareness, and rankings, which sounds so nice and abstract, means Jews now have to fear for their safety on leftist campuses. And by the way, it's probably spreading out of the campuses now as these people graduate into the real world.
And if you ever go across the sea to Ireland, you can watch the buildings on fire in Galway Bay. The peasants are revolting in Ireland.
Yes, they really are.
Yes, they really are.
And
we talk to our friend David Daleiden, the man who exposed Planned Parenthood for selling baby parts. Yes, you did hear that correctly. And his shocking recent investigation and ongoing legal battles. David's a complete hero. We just love David, and we've had David on the show a few times.
Yes.
And we are going to end on a happy note, which is a look back. I think, funny enough, I feel like we never did this on the show before, but a couple of years ago, I had the idea that we should do a deep fat fried turkey, and I bought one of those big, massive turkey fryers. So we're going to bring you how to do that if you decide you want to do that.
Without burning down your house.
Without burning down your house. You still have time. You still have time to not burn down your house and to do a deep fat fried turkey.
So I just wanted to talk about Hunter Biden. We've talked a lot about him, and we made a movie, My Son Hunter, which you can see at mysonhuntermovie.com. That's the movie written by Brian Godawas, directed by Robert Davi, starring Lawrence Fox, Gina Carano. Very funny, very poignant, very accurate.
Very naughty. I just want to put that in there right now. Very important. And
not for
not for the faint-hearted. It's funny actually because a friend of ours, Phelim in Ireland, you know who I'm talking. You'll kind of get an older lady from that knew my mother. You know who I'm talking about. Her daughter was in touch recently, and I was saying to her, "Have you seen the movie?" And I was sending her the link, and then she was saying, "Oh, my mother will really want to see it." And I was thinking, I don't know, but then she very interestingly pointed out to me, well, her mother spent the 60s in London. So the mother has...
So did your mother.
And so did my mother. And she was basically making the point that this lovely lady, had seen a few things in her time.
Hunter Biden, as you saw, gave a press conference. He's just ignoring. He's decided subpoenas don't apply to him, and the rules are different, and he has to go and do a public grandstanding as opposed to being forensically examined by a congressional committee. So the rules don't apply to Hunter Biden. Republicans say they do. Let's see who wins. I don't have any confidence in the Republican leadership or the Republican ability to get beyond their own ego and actually investigate this person.
I just love some of the stuff that he said, though. I'm here today to acknowledge that I have made mistakes in my life and wasted the privileges and opportunities I was afforded. He hasn't wasted anything now. Wait till you hear. For that, I am responsible. For that, I'm accountable. For that, I'm making amends. Well, you know what? You don't get to decide what amends you make, because for everybody else who doesn't pay their taxes, they go to prison. So, right?
He almost had a sweetheart deal where he wasn't going to go to prison. There was just some judge spotted that this was a ridiculous deal.
But the other thing that he said...
I can just come back. I just want to come back to what he said. For that, I'm responsible. For that, I'm accountable, and I'm making amends. Amends. As the IRS, the Democrat IRS pointed out, you said you went sober in May 2019. After that, you got millions of dollars in gifts and other income. You did not put one penny of it towards paying your tax bill. Mm-hmm. You lived on in the canals in Venice in a luxury $11,000 a month a house.
We've all been there.
What's the average salary in America? Is it $35,000 a year, $40,000 a year? You paid in 3 months for your accommodation.
Yeah.
You had plenty of money. You had a Porsche. This making amends. You drove a Porsche. You made the payments on your Porsche whilst you decided not to pay your tax bill.
But just look at further what he said. I mean, he said, but I'm also here today to correct how the MAGA right has portrayed me for their political purposes. And he says, and I love this, I'm proud of serving on a dozen different boards of directors and forging global business relationships. Now, Hunter, calm down a minute there. According to your own confessional book, you were high every 20 minutes. Every 20 minutes you were
whilst you were serving.
Whilst you were serving. And,
on a dozen different boards of directors.
As I say, that thing of, don't come here for medical advice. I'm not a doctor, so don't look at me for medical advice. However, even though I'm not a doctor, I would hazard a guess that when you're high on, what was it he was on? What was he on? Whatever. Methamphetamine. And all these
crack
cocaine. Oh, that's
the
right.
Producer has,
the producer has told us. The crack cocaine. When you're high on crack, I'm going to go out on a complete limb here. As I said, I'm not a medical doctor. That if you're high on crack cocaine and drinking, what was it again? He'd be at the pool at the Chateau Marmont, and he would rack up a bill of $700, and he was not buying a drink for anyone else. Not buying a drink for anyone else.
The barman was shocked. The barman couldn't believe the bill.
That he could still walk.
Yes.
And the barman couldn't believe the bill. So you're trying to tell us that while you were conducting yourself in that particular manner, according to yourself, that you were serving with distinction on a dozen different boards of directors and forging business relationship. You couldn't forge, I'm trying to think, you know what I mean? You could just about barely forge information to the IRS. Is that good? No, it's not kind of great. No, but you know what I mean? You weren't forging anything, basically. You weren't serving on any boards of directors. Your name was being used. And you were using your father's name in order to...
And you were using access to your father to get prosecutors fired in the Ukraine, to get billion-dollar loans to the Ukraine, to get Chinese guys off charges, to get Chinese government to the very heart of the American government, back when your father was the vice president.
And he goes on to say, for 6 years, MAGA Republicans have impugned my character. No, actually.
We made a movie. There was a documentary.
No, we made a movie. There was a documentary. We didn't impugn your character. You impugned your own. Now, I don't even know what the verb impugn means, but whatever we are saying about your character is only what you said yourself. What you said yourself.
And you were lying.
And you were lying. You wrote a book, and again, I'm going to mention it because I think it needs to be mentioned every time. You wrote a book, said you couldn't remember the name of the woman from Arkansas, the woman that you had a baby with, who in fact was on the payroll of your tiny company. So you did know her name, and you pretended you didn't, and then you ghosted the child that was produced from your union with her. You ghosted a child. You'll never, for the rest of, whatever about anything else, this has nothing to do with politics. You ghosted a child. We've all done terrible things in our lives and we're all sinners, but my God, it's well up there. You ghosted a child. And you're continuing to ghost a child, by the way, and your father is continuing to ghost a child. It's pretty extreme. So no one's impugning your character. You're displaying your character for us to point out
But
what you're up to.
For 6 years, I've been the target. This is in its further step.
Unrelenting.
I have been the target of the unrelenting Trump attack machine, shouting, "Where's Hunter?" Well, here's my answer. I am here. Well, let's just... So, basically that's an attack on us because we knocked on the door of his $11,000 a month Venice home.
Rental.
We asked questions. We sent emails. And then when we got no response, he says we rented a canoe. In a recent podcast, we rented a canoe. No, we didn't. We have our own kayak. And I paddled up the canal with my bullhorn to ask him questions. Now... There's a certain element of humor and jokiness to that, but it's actually a serious question. What do you do when a public figure won't answer your questions about very, 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 very important topics? Well, you ask them questions whatever way you can. And to me, that was about highlighting how he was hiding behind those gates, hiding behind those fences.
Hiding behind the Secret Service that are being paid for by you and me.
But hiding behind a compliant mainstream media too.
Yes.
You know,
who weren't asking
no questions. Who were running running interference, saying that the laptop story was unproven, that it was Russian disinformation.
Yeah, well, I had loads of help, by the way, for that film. They had 51, I think it was 51 former people connected with the Secret Service saying nothing to see here.
Yeah, the intelligence. By the way, talking of Secret Service, I just want to go on a complete tangent. Did you see the car crashing into the Biden motorcade? This has been one of my bugbears. Is there a worse government organization on the planet than the Secret Service? The FBI is pretty bad, but at least the FBI is a deeply corrupt organization, but they're pretty efficient, I think. The Secret Service, from Kennedy's assassination to, Ford, there was somebody who was able to fire at Ford. Reagan was shot. They were involved with prostitutes in Colombia. They allowed a killer or a serious criminal to do the fake sign language for Obama in South Africa.
Oh yeah,
I think they even had someone in a lift with an elevator with Obama who was carrying a gun, a legal gun. Like they sit there like we would sit there. What's that? You're the Secret Service. You're supposed to get your man. You're supposed to throw your body on top of the president. And what I really hate is they eventually get him into the car, but they allow him to stand on the little stand. See, his head pops up there. It's just wild. It's
moving right along.
Yes, moving right along. Sorry. So MySonHunterMovie.com.
It'll literally be Christmas Day here.
Yes.
Yes, MySonHunterMovie.com. MySonHunterMovie.com, as I said, yes, it does come with it's got an R rating actually. From me, I'm giving it an R rating, even if nobody else did.
Adult.
So Phelim, tell us about the latest with Black Lives Matter.
Listen, you could have a program every week about the scams and the grifters. So anyway, remember the Black Lives Matter organization? It was exposed as a scam, an absolute scam, and it's now it's just equity. This equity and diversity is a scam, and a dangerous scam at that. But this is a particular story we really like. The former Facebook DEI executive, she just pleaded guilty to embezzlement charges totaling $4 million. And of course, when they plead guilty to that actually means
it's more than that.
It's more than that. So Barbara Furlow Smiles. Mm-hmm. That's almost like a fake name, isn't
it? Yeah.
Yeah. Who served as the lead strategist and global head of employee resource groups and diversity engagement at Facebook. She used stolen funds to live an extravagant lifestyle, and very much like our old friend Patrice Cullors, actually, she contracted friends and family and then took kickbacks.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, we really love, the story of Patrisse Cullors, who Phelim, of course, had the famous confrontation with.
I'm not saying, by the way, that Patrisse took kickback. She was a lot more dumber. I think she gave money to her boyfriend and her brother from the Black Lives Matter charity, and bought 4 houses. So she cut out the middleman. She didn't even bother with the kickback. She just took the money. So will we show my little questioning?
Let's do that.
Yes.
Ms. Cullors, I wanted to ask you, do you think it's appropriate that you give your boyfriend almost $1 million of BLM money? Do you not think it's inappropriate, it's unethical to give $1 million and $840,000 to your brother? Would you be prepared to answer the question? Do you think it's appropriate? Do you think it's appropriate? Do you think it's appropriate? Why won't you answer the question? Why won't you answer the question? Why won't you answer the question? Why won't you answer the question?
I'm being harassed right now, you guys.
Why won't you answer the question?
I'm being harassed.
You gave $1 million of charitable money. Don't keep your hands off me. Keep your hands off me. You give $1 million of charitable money. You give us $1 million of charitable money.
So you got to leave. Sir, you got to leave.
They said you can ask questions. They said you can ask questions. I'm asking questions.
Come on, you got to go, sir.
I'm asking questions.
No, we're asking you to leave.
You're asking me to leave.
We've asked you 3 times to leave.
Kieran, I'm leaving now.
Okay, let's go. Let's go.
So and just I mean, we're all about the real estate. So and I just love the fact that she owned she bought 4 high-end homes, and we know that she was looking at property in the Bahamas, in a place where Justin Timberlake and Tiger Woods had bought property. So she was on a real shopping spree.
She's reinvented herself now as an artist. That's that.
I hadn't heard that.
No, that's that event I was at was her showing her art.
Oh, I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
Okay, as protest, so basically...
maybe, no, sorry, it wasn't... She'd just come from the art exhibition, yes. So she's now an artist. Funny, so is Hunter Biden. No.
Yes.
So this basically seems to be the next stage of grifterism.
She went, so she, just to go back, she decided she would go on a big, huge real estate buying binge, snagging 4 high-end homes for $3.2 million in the US alone, according to records. So yeah, very nice, by the way. Why not? Why not? So the self-described Marxist, this is from the New York Post, I just love this. The self-described Marxist purchased a $1.4 million home on a secluded road, a short drive from Malibu in Los Angeles. The 2,300 square foot property features soaring ceilings, skylights and plenty of windows with canyon views. In Topanga Canyon, sure, nice. You'd love it yourself, wouldn't you? But that was only one of the 3 homes in Los Angeles that she bought, according to public records. So nice job if you can get it,
yes, and they can get it.
And by the way, the other thing that's extraordinary, and I mean, we have a 501c3, which of course we will take them now. Nice segue there to mention we have a 501c3, and thank you very much for your donations. And those of you who haven't donated, donate now, donate often, because it really helps, and we can't do what we do without your help. And you can give at unreportedstoriesociety.com, unreportedstoriesociety.com. But that makes me think of a question, and it's an interesting thing.
Yes.
So when you run a 501c3, I mean, the laws actually are very strict in America on 501c3s, on not-for-profits, on the not-for-profit sector. And one of the things that's required is that every year you have to have an audit, an independent audit. And it's a good idea, by the way. It's a great idea. But I'm going to ask the question, okay, and Phelim will answer it. I'm going to ask the question. So when the BLM Foundation was established first, it probably was rocking, doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And then, of course, whatever George Floyd, whatever Trayvon Martin, whatever happened, the next thing, they got this massive injection, I think post George Floyd, maybe.
Correct.
Massive injection of money. And they ended up with I certainly know very much further north of $30 million. They're getting money from everywhere. And I would love to know where that money went. Now, we obviously know there was a lot of purchasing of properties by Cullors, but the 990 has to be published every year. What happened, Phelim?
Do you remember it wasn't published? That was the
correct.
thing.
I do remember that.
It for several
and
years.
They asked for a kind of a.
And do you remember she said that she now found the words 501c3 triggering?
Oh yes, yeah. It's racist.
It was traumatic for her, and
I find it very traumatic.
Yes. No. We spend an inordinate amount of time dealing with auditors and
I mean, it's very serious, but we get it, and it's important because you're using and you're spending charitably donated funds.
Yes.
So you have to be incredibly accountable. Unless, and this must be maybe somewhere in the IRS code, unless the name of your charity is BLM, unless your charity is somehow connected to the BLM movement,
or
in
DEI.
which case, the rules actually genuinely don't really apply to you.
So I don't want to spend, again, this thing is moving on. You'd see the state of Oklahoma has banned DEI from the state.
Well done, Governor Kevin Stitt.
Yes.
Well done, you.
And of course, the leftists are in complete meltdown. Jemele Hill, who was ESPN,
right.
She just thinks that this is terrible and that it's about Oklahoma having a deep-seated resentment towards being forced into any level of accountability. Nicole Hannah-Jones, she of the 1619 Nonsense Project, she believes that this is deplorable. Society is regressing and we should be appalled. The point, I mean, there's many points to make, but the point I want to make is without DEI, there'd be a lot less anti-Semitism on campus. In the Oppression Olympics,
yes.
They've decided
yes.
that the Jews come last. They are white oppressors, even though we've just come back from Israel and we met so many Jewish people who are quite, by any description, are not white.
That's right.
I mean, do you remember actually, and it got sticky at times because remember, oh no, you weren't with me for that interview. The interview I did up north, and one guy, they were lying by the side of their car getting shot at for several hours, and then the soldiers came along, and Israeli soldiers with the guns, and they put their hands up and said, "We're Israel." And as this guy interviewing says, "My friend, he's not white. He looks Arab." And we interviewed another guy who looked, Middle Eastern, is not white, definitely not. And they were pointing guns at him, and they said, and they were so panicked and so, I mean, obviously so stressed and all that. The soldiers going, "Say the alphabet, say the alphabet," and the guy was going, all he could say was, "Alphabet, alphabet." He when he heard the words "say the alphabet,"
he was so nervous.
He was so nervous. So, this is why Harvard, and you can see this, and Harvard, they had a Hanukkah lighting ceremony with the menorah.
This is terrible.
Let's play what Harvard has to do what the Jews in Harvard have. Right, they have to do lots of things, but let's just play what Rabbi 𝙤𝙤 probably destroyed that
murdering
name.
That name. Yes, go on.
Apologies, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Let's just say what he has to do every evening.
I never spoke about this publicly, but this bothers me till this very day. You know what happens to the menorah? After everyone leaves the yard, we're going to pack it up. We have to hide it somewhere. The university, since the first Hanukkah, would not allow us to keep this menorah here overnight because there's fear that it'll be vandalized. Think about that. We're trying to fix the world, the future leaders of the world. On our campus, in the shadow of Widener Library, we in the Jewish community are instructed, we'll let you have the menorah, you made your point, okay, pack it up. Don't leave it out overnight. Because there will be criminal activity, we fear, and it won't look good. You know when change is going to happen on this campus? When we don't have to pack up the menorah. When the current dean of students is not able to tell me last Shabbat over dinner that a student confides in him, that he looks in the mirror before he leaves his dorm room to ensure that there's nothing on his physical appearance that gives away the fact that he's a Jew. That's the reality of the Jewish community at Harvard today. We have to pack up our menorah when we're done. Students have to remove anything. Some students feel they have to remove anything about their physical appearance that suggests that they're a target. We have work to do, friends. We in the Jewish community are longing for a day that we could refer to the president and all of Harvard as ours too. That Harvard has indeed not only has our back, and not only allows us to finally put up a menorah, but doesn't force us to hide it at night. And when they witness hateful calls to the death of Jews, you don't walk by and say nothing. You speak. You don't remain silent. And let's hope that indeed we'll be able to look at the light of the Hanukkah candles and see only its light, because the power of its light will eliminate all the darkness and turn this and transform our community to a place that'll be indeed a beacon of light, not only to the lives and to the hearts and minds of all our students, but indeed through our students and through our community to the world.
And by the way, if you don't do it, here's what happens in Oakland. Look at those pictures. Your menorah gets vandalized.
Well, it's a very good reason for Jewish people to be worried. Because the rise in anti-Semitism is unprecedented. And if something doesn't change, it's only going to get worse. So there's an awful new poll that I noticed this week in the Jerusalem Post, like really quite extraordinary. And I think we're all becoming very, I mean, I definitely was living in a world where I genuinely didn't think people were anti-Semitic. I thought it was, I genuinely didn't, but I'm getting a big and very swift education. I'm not the only person getting a swift education. Plenty of very liberal Jews are suddenly discovering that there's a very anti-Semitic world out there. Yeah. So anyway, according to this Jerusalem Post recent poll, 2/3, about 67% of young Americans between the ages of 18 and 24 believe that Jews as a class are oppressors and should be treated as oppressors. More than half, 51% of 18 to 24-year-olds believe that the long-term answer for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is for Israel to be ended and given to Hamas and the Palestinians. However, and I just love this, and this tells you everything you need to know about young people, the contradiction. Another question on the poll was asked, if Israel has the right to exist, found that 69% of that cohort believed that Israel does have a right to exist. So Israel has a right to exist, but Israel should be ended and given to Hamas and the Palestinians. And I think I think that in summary, young people are highly uneducated. I'm going to be nice because it's Christmas time and I don't want to use very strong words. No, but there is a level of ignorance and stupidity. Okay, but actually, I've gone there.
No. I think ignorance. Maybe it's not stupidity. I think ignorance, but ignorance in the pure sense that they are ignorant, right? That they have not been educated.
Correct, but also, Phil, and most people do know, most people who have any reading or writing and comprehension skills would know what a contradiction is.
Yes.
So they're capable of this incredible contradiction of thinking that Israel should be ended and given to Hamas, as well as thinking that Israel has a right to exist. So there's some kind of incredible amount of ignorance and stupidity out there. Anyone, by the way, holding up, Queers for Palestine. I mean, the jokes tell themselves.
Yes.
If it wasn't such a serious issue, the jokes would tell themselves. It's extraordinary. Anyway, moving on, Phil. What's happening in Ireland?
As we said at the beginning, if you ever go across the sea to Ireland, you can watch buildings burn in Galway Bay. So yes, there is a Gardaí, a police investigation to a mysterious fire that occurred last weekend at the Ross Lake House Hotel in
𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤, Phil.
Oh, apologies, I'm not from your country. I'm not from the Free State.
He's not from the Free State.
County Galway, as a suspected incident of criminal damage. Now, you may be wondering why the Anne and Phelim scoop based in Los Angeles, California,
should have an interest in this.
Should have an interest in a abandoned hotel, actually, a former hotel that had not been in use for several years. Why a mysterious fire there? But it turns out it had been selected to accommodate 70 asylum seekers in the forthcoming days. That's 70. Normally it's men, young men. And these, 𝘼𝙤𝙤, is it, how big is it? Like, it's hundreds, maybe a few thousand people. It's tiny. And what's happening is, and this is happening in all these Western Irish towns, is that the local hotel that's trekking along wasn't making much money. Then they brought in smoking bans and minimum wages went up, and then they brought in COVID and it basically destroyed them. And then they brought in inflation and that triply destroyed them.
No, a lot of these hotels in the west of Ireland, rural areas in Ireland, were just coming out of the kind of the COVID madness and trying to recover from COVID. And the next thing, the asylum seekers arrived.
But the government said to them, give them an offer they couldn't refuse. We will pay you ridiculous amounts of money to put these men in your rooms. And of course, the businessmen and women who run the hotel said yes. But that has destroyed the villages, because they depend on tourism. They depend on tourists coming, the restaurants, the bars, the trinket shops, all the secondary businesses, the open farms, all these things are all destroyed now. And on top of that, you've got populations of towns doubling with mostly young men, and that young men, by the way, who import some rather interesting cultural differences, such as the young man in Sligo who thought it was okay to go around beheading homosexuals and did a few of those beheadings before he was caught. And so, anyway, there was protest, and the elites in Ireland, Fianna Fáil, all the parties, Sinn Féin included, the former political wing of the IRA, or the political wing of the IRA still, that the IRA has a ceasefire now, and they all are in favour of open borders, pretty much open borders, and the people are not. And they were protesting outside the hotel. No one was listening to them. And then I suppose they set the hotel on fire. Who knows? Maybe it was electrical fault. I doubt it. They set it on fire. Now, setting fire to buildings is not the right way to protest what's happening. But when every political party lies and gaslights you and doesn't seem to care about your town or village, this is what Irish people do. And this is what happened in Northern Ireland before the Troubles. You know, it went from zero to a bit of the police cracking a few heads, and suddenly you had full-scale violence. Ireland is like that. It goes from 0 to 100 very quickly. And then in a town beside your hometown, and Ballyshannon, there was a public meeting.
I used to teach there.
There was a public meeting about another 80 people coming to that town, young men. And, you know, let's play a few...
Well, actually, don't brush over that point, because that's actually really important. They were suggesting to bring, I think, 70 or 80, I can't remember the number, but 70 or 80 men, what are they calling them? Asylum seekers in Maria, or supposedly asylum seekers. But that huge number of just men into the town. Well, there was a local meeting, and here's what some of that looked like.
Let me ask my question. What is Sinn Féin's policy on immigration? Let's hear it now. What is your policy on immigration?
Brits out, everybody else in. That's what your policy is. Brits out, strong men.
No, the policy is...
Brits out.
Oh, let's hear. Hold on.
I quite like the Brits out, everybody else in. If you're from Northern Ireland, you'll find that quite funny. And that was directed to Sinn Féin, by the way, because that was their slogan for so many years, Brits out.
What we're going to do now is we're going to go over to an interview we just did earlier with David Daleiden, the wonderful David Daleiden of the Centre for Medical Progress, who is responsible for those undercover videos, and of course then the law and the establishment and deep state came after him in a big way. But let's hear, David has just is in the middle of a new investigation, really interesting. Let's go over to that right now.
So we're joined now by our good friend David Daleiden, who is, among many things, the founder and director of the Centre for Medical Progress. You probably know him best for the person whose undercover tapes revealed that Planned Parenthood was selling baby parts. And, you may have read that it was all made up. You may have read that it was misinformation and disinformation. It's not. I've seen the receipts. We've seen the receipts.
Yeah, we've seen the receipts.
You can buy the skin of a Down syndrome baby. Was it $320, David? The receipt that was in the congressional report. So I've seen the receipts. It's all through. We always want David on our show. The reason that inspired us to get him on the show this time is that looks like the University of Pittsburgh is finally being investigated for its role in trafficking baby fetal parts. So we wanted to talk about that and the aftermath of David's investigation. So welcome to the show, David.
Welcome, David.
Thank you for having me on. It's great to see you guys.
Yeah, so let's, as I say, let's start at the end. So tell us about the University of Pittsburgh. There's been a development there. Tell us about what's happening there that we should know about.
Sure. So Center for Medical Progress has been reporting on government-funded fetal experimentation at the University of Pittsburgh, which is carried out with the help of Planned Parenthood. It's the Planned Parenthood abortion doctors who are on staff at the University of Pittsburgh who supply the aborted fetuses for fetal experimentation projects at the University of Pittsburgh. And CMP has been reporting on this for the past several years. And just recently, within the past year, we have received several categories of new FOIA documents, so public records under the Freedom of Information, the Federal Freedom of Information Act, that we've been pursuing from the NIH together with our friends at Judicial Watch. And the latest released batch of public records that we have from those FOIA requests shows that for the past 2 years, there's been an active federal law enforcement investigation of the fetal experimentation and the fetus harvesting at the University of Pittsburgh that's carried out in cooperation with Planned Parenthood. And this is a pretty big deal. There have been different whistleblowers and other people that I have spoken to, sources that I've spoken to off the record, who have told me for the past several years that the University of Pittsburgh was a major hub for illegal fetal trafficking in partnership with Planned Parenthood, and that was under law enforcement investigation. But these FOIA documents that we've just released in the past week are the first written official documentary confirmation that there is an active federal law enforcement investigation of what's happening in Pittsburgh.
The word fetal trafficking sounds very dramatic and sounds it can't be true.
Yeah.
You know, who would traffic in baby parts and you know,
and why
and why and tell us, like, not only...
Yeah, that's kind of my point. Just as you were talking there, my point was, why would Planned Parenthood do something like this, which might interfere with their very, very lucrative legal business? Can you talk us through that?
Sure. So there's plenty of money to be made in trading and in supplying the raw human biological material, whether it's stem cells, primary cells, or even whole fresh organs from aborted babies, from a basically ethics-free biological or scientific perspective. You can look at the human fetus, a tiny little premature baby, as a perfect little miniature testing laboratory for anything and everything that you might want to try to tinker with or discover or try to kind of short circuit or use a cheat code to accelerate your biotech R&D. Whether you're at an academic research laboratory like at the University of Pittsburgh and you are competing for massive multi-million-dollar government grants to fund your laboratory and add to the prestige of your university, whether you're working for a big pharmaceutical company and you're trying to outpace your competition with drugs that you're trying to take to market, or whether you're just an intellectual property developer who wants to try to differentiate your particular patent or your particular research grant just enough from somebody else's so that you can get access to more grant money or have an exclusive patent that you then have royalties to. All of these are basically the inefficiencies that are built into the system that people rely on aborted baby body parts for as sort of like a shortcut or a cheat code to try to get ahead in the business of biotech. So there's lots of money to be made in that. And as far as why Planned Parenthood would want to be involved, Planned Parenthood, in addition to the cases that we have documented where they're just straight up selling body parts for cash, they also, in these relationships with major taxpayer-funded research universities, they have a really gross quid pro quo setup where Planned Parenthood supplies the fetuses for experimentation in exchange for the medical resources and the access to medical students, new abortion doctors, higher abortion numbers, more patient access that the universities give them. So that's a big part of the motivation.
Can I ask, can you break down, and I've seen the figures, and people might not believe it, how much can you make off a fetus?
Well, so I mean, it's the market is the market is definitely a little different today than it was maybe 8 years ago. But when I was doing my undercover research
before like I just say 8 years ago, before your investigation. So let's say before your investigation, how much money could you make out of a fetus?
So before my investigation, when I spoke with the laboratory director of one of the major biotech companies that was purchasing fetuses from Planned Parenthood in Northern California, the laboratory director of STEM Express told me a story about the biggest fetal liver that she had ever received at the laboratory when she was working at STEM Express. It was from a 19-week abortion, so a baby that was 5 months along, practically viable at that point. And she said that it was the biggest fetal liver she had ever seen. They pulled a particular kind of stem cells out of the liver, put it in a vial, and sold that vial to a taxpayer-funded company for $17,000. All right, and that's just from one body part from one baby.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, and we'll put some of the receipts up there from the congressional report. You know, every part was being sold: skin, arms, legs, liver, kidneys. You know, you name it. They were. So, and I think wasn't Planned Parenthood, like their profits were declining, and this was a nice little profit center for them, wasn't it?
Planned Parenthood relies on abortion to keep their business model profitable, absolutely. And so everything that they can do to build in extra profit margin to the abortion business, they do that. Whether it's cutting corners on patient safety and on the way that they do their intake and their surgical prep with their patients, or whether it's selling the body parts of the aborted babies on the back end.
Are you feeling optimistic that something will finally happen here? I mean, I think I'm getting the impression that this Pittsburgh is a massive deal, that what's happening now with this federal investigation is a massive deal. Will something finally happen, David?
Well, it's never over until it's over, right? So I don't have a crystal ball, and I can't predict the future, unfortunately. But but what I do think is already clear from the FOIA documents and from the fact that this investigation exists, and there's confirmation of that now, is that this issue of trafficking the body parts of aborted babies is not going away for big abortion and the abortion industry and Planned Parenthood. They and some of their most powerful allies in government, in the media, in politics have tried to silence me and silence my colleagues, tried to intimidate and bully people into not speaking out about this topic. But it still hasn't worked 8 years in, and they're still facing federal investigation. University of Pittsburgh had to respond to a formal subpoena for the information about their fetal tissue bank that's been funded by tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer money over the years, supplied with fresh fetuses from Planned Parenthood for decades. So this issue is not going away for them, and there's going to continue to be public scrutiny. There's going to continue to be official government scrutiny. And I think that the weight of the facts, as those continue to surface, are going to force accountability under the law for the abortion industry.
I see there in your communications, you said that there's even evidence that babies were born alive,
yes,
for the purpose of harvesting their kidneys. Tell me the evidence you have for that, because that's
huge.
That's huge.
Yes. So Center for Medical Progress was the first to report on this 2 years ago when we received the first copy. And mind you, this was a heavily redacted FOIA-produced copy of the original grant application that the University of Pittsburgh submitted to the NIH for something called the GoodMap program, which stands for Genitourinary Developmental Mapping Atlas Project, I think. GoodMap. And this was a large NIH-wide federal program that was meant to study and experiment on the kidneys of aborted babies, basically, and other body parts from late-term aborted babies. And the University of Pittsburgh was applying in 2016 for this multi-year, multi-million-dollar federal grant to be the official distribution hub for late-term aborted fetal kidneys under the GoodMap grant program. So University of Pittsburgh was advertising to the NIH why they would be the best site to supply the late-term aborted fetal body parts to all the other federally funded, federally sponsored GoodMap program projects. And in this grant application, the University of Pittsburgh advertised to the NIH that they would use labor induction abortions, where the baby is pushed out, is delivered whole out of the mother, that they would use labor induction abortions as a method of tissue collection, is how they described it in the application. And then they said that they would be the best place to do this because they would take steps to minimize the warm ischemic time on the samples that they collected from those fetuses. And they said that their practice already was to track and record precisely the warm ischemic time on all of their samples.
What's a warm ischemic time?
Warm ischemia time refers to the time that a body part is disconnected from its blood supply before you move it to the freezer, like to refrigerate it or freeze it for transportation or transplantation or whatever is going to be done with it. So if you put those statements together, that the University of Pittsburgh is saying that they know and track the exact time that their body parts lose blood supply, They take steps to minimize the amount of time that the body parts are without blood supply. And they're using labor induction abortions where they're delivering whole babies as a tissue collection procedure. You put those three things together, and there's no way to understand that other than the babies are still alive at the time that they're being pushed out of the mother, and then the kidneys are harvested as soon as the torso is visible and available to the NIH Pittsburgh kidney harvesters. So it's partial birth abortion and it's infanticide.
So what does the mother know in this setting?
Likely very little. The limited patient consent form documents that the University of Pittsburgh and the NIH have produced pursuant to these FOIA requests don't mention anything about these kind of abortion methods or about the use of the fetus or the fetal body parts afterwards, or about the harvesting protocols that are going to be employed. The consent forms that we've seen for the so-called tissue donation are extremely vague and extremely boilerplate in their language. And this is something that we will report on more in the future, but there's even some concern based on some of the way that these research universities like to apply various research standards, that in many cases these consent forms may not be being used at all. And that's something that we'll certainly be reporting more on in the future.
Oh God, I mean, it's extraordinary. I mean, this is going to sound weird. I think it's hard to make people care about this, by the way. I know that sounds really weird. There is an enormous number of people who think, who cares? This baby was intended to be dead anyway. And by the way, I strongly believe that in a woman's right to choose, and who cares, because at least you got some good use out of it, kind of thing. Like, I used to be very, I used to have a very soft attitude to people who were pro-abortion, because I thought, they just don't understand. They're just, whatever. No, I think an awful lot of them really, really do actually understand. And actually for me, it's very challenging, because I think people who are pro-abortion have become triumphant, celebratory, and aggressively pro-abortion. So they'd almost be like, yeah, this is great. And by the way, if we can make some money doing it, fantastic. How do we get to those people? I mean, that's to me, that's a massive challenge. I mean, obviously, we're sitting here like outraged by what you're saying. Like, it's beyond barbaric, right? But how do we get those other people to care?
Well, it is true that the pro-abortion movement has gotten a lot more bold and a lot more extreme in the past several years here. But you can also look at that and analyze that as a reaction to their insecurity and to their growing realization that their position in the culture and in the government is not as strong as it once was. I mean, witness the fall of Roe versus Wade just about a year and a half ago. I think they recognize that their time is short and their power is slipping. And so on the other side, you look at the polling data is very clear, right? That the vast majority of Americans oppose the vast majority of abortions. And even people who otherwise identify as pro-choice are overwhelmingly opposed to abortions when the baby can feel pain, abortions in the third trimester, abortions after the point of viability, and even oftentimes abortion, when you tell them, abortion after the baby has a recognizable heartbeat. And that kind of shocks, I think, a lot of people out of their abstractions and into reality. So I think that in my experience in advocacy work and also in undercover work, getting up close and personal with abortion providers, first of all the professional abortion doctors in the United States, they know for a fact that their business is based around killing children. And they hate it, and they hate themselves for it, and they need a lot of therapy because of it. And and those are the most devoted disciples of pro-abortion dogma out there. Those are the people who are actually delivering the babies for fetal harvesting. So if even they have a problem with it, pretty much everybody else is going to have a problem with it if they only knew or could see what the actual practitioners of legalized industrial scale child killing have to know and see every day in this country. So that's why I think that stories like what's happening at the University of Pittsburgh, stories about Planned Parenthood's coordinated fetal harvesting, so-called research programs around the country are so important. because I think that they do shock people out of their complacency, out of the abstractions. They give them something concrete that they're forced to grapple with, and it helps people rediscover their humanity about this issue. So that's why I do the work that I do, and that's why Center for Medical Progress will continue to report on these stories.
Exists. Yeah, and actually I think you've put your finger, I think you've exactly, I've got a perfect segue actually now, David, because I think you're exactly right, that people would care if they knew, and if they knew the industrial size of it, and if they knew the barbarity of it. And that is why, and this gives me an opportunity to get into the next section of questioning, which is, it's exactly why, David, what you did, which was so powerful and so courageous and so wonderful, the journalism that you did with those undercover videos that you produced, that's why the whole world came down on top of you because of that. Because what you did was going to change everything. So at all costs, we have to destroy you. We have to make sure that your videos are not seen. And I want to know what's the latest with that situation. So you created those incredible videos, and it became, do you remember this film? I mean, I have such a clear memory of it. Was huge. It started to become super viral. The whole world were starting to become aware of this thing. And then they came down on you like a ton of bricks. And I know that it's ongoing, and this is years later, using lawfare, as they call it, using the power of the legal process to destroy you. Where are we with that? Sorry, Phil, what were you saying?
I just want to say, the Trump Department of Justice.
Yes, not impressed.
Not impressed.
We're not impressed.
Look, the Democrats' Department of Justice will put people in prison for going into an abortion clinic and restricting their business for an hour or two.
Yeah.
But the Trump White House didn't think there was any reason to investigate people.
Even though you had all the goods.
And a congressional committee had all the receipts.
Yeah. So let's just hear about David's situation now.
Sure. So in retaliation, after I published the undercover videos showing the highest levels of Planned Parenthood negotiating the harvesting and sale of late-term aborted baby body parts, Planned Parenthood, together with the National Abortion Federation, which is basically a proxy group, abortion trade group for Planned Parenthood, together they brought two federal lawsuits in San Francisco federal court in front of a biased judge. William Orrick, Obama appointee, founded and funded and helped operate a Planned Parenthood abortion referral clinic in San Francisco that was part of the lawsuit in front of him and failed to recuse himself. Judge Orrick issued a federal injunction, a federal gag order against the release of our remaining undercover footage, about half of everything that we ever recorded, and as well as a total, now I think close to $25 million civil fine. Because Planned Parenthood's entire case was basically that because we never actually purchased body parts from them, it was fraud. So go figure, because we didn't actually get the blood on our hands with them and exchange and exchange money with them over baby parts, that meant that the undercover investigation was fraud and we should be punished. And then at the same time, Planned Parenthood got their, at that time in 2015, the Attorney General of California was Kamala Harris, now in the White House. And they got Kamala Harris to launch the first ever criminal prosecution of an undercover journalist under the California video recording law. Again, to try to, potentially even to try to throw me in jail, but certainly to try to silence me, to try to chill further speech about this topic and about the undercover videos, and to try to suppress the information completely. So you can see years later, this information is so serious, and the facts about the harvesting and trafficking of aborted babies through partial birth abortions and other mechanisms are so damning for the abortion industry that the cover-up goes all the way to the top, all the way to the White House at this point. Kamala Harris and the new head of the Health and Human Services Department, Xavier Becerra, who was her successor, continued the case. Now, the update portion that I can give you, the reason that I'm still fighting, Center for Medical Progress is still fighting all of this, and the appeals and other things will continue, is because earlier this year, over the summer, the federal Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals came down with a new development in First Amendment law, and basically new rules ruling very clearly over the summer that undercover video recording, or as the court called it, unannounced video recording of conversations, of newsworthy conversations in places that are open to the public, are protected speech under the First Amendment. And that is totally opposite from everything that Planned Parenthood and Kamala Harris and Judge 𝙈𝙘𝙬 and others have said against me and my colleagues for the past 8 years. So we think that case is very significant. We're going to continue to fight for.
What case was that? Then what was the circumstances of that case?
That case is called Project Veritas v. Schmidt.
So it's Project Veritas.
Oh, very interesting.
But didn't the Ninth Circuit uphold most of the award against you?
Yeah, so that was back in either 2020 or 2021. And this is a newer decision and a new formal precedent that's come down from the Ninth Circuit just as recently as this summer, in the summer of 2023. So it definitely it represents a huge shift and development in the law on these issues that totally overrides everything that 𝙈𝙘𝙀 and Planned Parenthood said before. So we think that deserves a lot of attention, a lot of scrutiny. So there's and it represents a huge victory for undercover journalism and for undercover reporting, for the courts to begin to recognize that this is that undercover video reporting is a critical component of First Amendment speech in the 21st century.
Which courts are you going to spend most of your quality time in?
I think David's ready to go to law. You don't need to go to law school. I think you could go and take the bar exam right now, David, given the amount of time you spent in court in the last few years.
Well, hopefully I'm going to be spending less time in court. Hopefully, these things do take time. But I and my team at CMP are really focused on the information that we just released this past week about the University of Pittsburgh and the investigation there is just one part of a pretty comprehensive public records investigation that CMP has been quietly conducting for the past couple of years now. We will have more documents about more of these similar fact patterns of big Planned Parenthood surgical centers in partnership with major taxpayer-funded research centers, trading body parts for money and other benefits, and some of the really horrifying activity that goes on in the abortion programs there, and in the research abortion and harvesting abortion cases that Planned Parenthood supplies for these places. So we'll be reporting more on that in the months ahead in 2024. We have some other projects in the works that I can't talk about yet, but I'm very hopeful that this.
What are your plans for the holidays then, as they say in America, the holidays?
That's right, for Christmas. What are you doing for Christmas? Are you going to be in California? Are you traveling?
Yeah, I will be home in California. I'll be spending time with family, friends, and remember, Christmas is 12 days long. I try to be a good Catholic, especially on the holidays, and Christmas is a 12-day feast day. So it's just a really beautiful time to enjoy creation, enjoy our communities, and be thankful for the presence of God among us. So.
And we're very
Amen.
thankful for the presence of David Daleiden in the world. I always remember David and I were on the road a few times together, and I've always enjoyed traveling with you, David. But I have a very specific memory of something, and I love saying this, and I've said it before about you, but I remember asking you one time, because you described, and I remember David doing this one time, and I was listening to his speech, and he talked about being in that very large abortion facility in Houston, the famous one that looks like a till, like a cash.
It was like a cash register, like a giant cash register.
The building, it looks like a cash register. The building looks like a cash register. But David was in there, and I remember seeing the videos and all of that. And David was in there while these people were, literally playing with babies' bodies parts, and David was there, with his colleague, and I remember just saying to David, I don't know how you do. Like, how can you do that? How did you do that? How do you whatever some version of that in my kind of I was in complete awe of David being capable of just being there. And he said that he was there to witness for the children because nobody else was there for them, and that he was there for them. And I just never forgot that. And I just think it's incredible, David. You know, so, you know, you're the real thing. You're the real deal. And I can't even begin to imagine how difficult that work was, you know, from the scary point of view of, you know, how you got in there in the first place, but then to be in those places. But I think it's a really beautiful thing, and it's an amazing mission you have, and we're so supportive of what you're doing, and we just love you for it. And hope we can have a glass of wine one of these days, David, when over the season. And thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you do. And I think, you need to take the 12 days, David, because you need to recharge. You need to recharge, because it's tough. It's the toughest possible work that you do, and we are very grateful that you do it.
Thank you guys for saying that. It would be lovely to see you all over the holidays. I'm sure we will.
Well, let's maybe try and do that.
Yes.
All right. It's not that far away we're not that far away from each other. We won't get into any geographical details about where anyone is. All right. Listen, thanks a million, David, for your time, and happy Christmas.
Thank you, guys. Merry Christmas. I'll talk to you soon.
Well, we really love talking to David. What a complete
We should have him
hero.
on more often.
I know that.
We should have him on once a month.
Yeah.
You know?
But we need to hear, so we'll follow this, because this Pittsburgh story is very, very interesting and needs to be followed up with. So we've come to the end of the show, by the way, and we shouldn't end without doing something super, super
festive.
Christmassy and festive. So what I thought we'd do, because I think we never did this before, was a few years ago I decided that what would be really great to try, because I've always been super curious about deep fat frying a turkey. And so the things you need to know to do this is, the big thing is you need the deep fat fryer, which is obviously has to be bought specially.
This is an American thing, isn't it? This is an American thing.
I think this is an American thing. I don't think this is something that anybody else does. And of course, the actual fryer itself is probably something you can't buy in many countries. So you can only buy it here. This huge thing. And of course, this is the kind of difficulty with this is that you need, I think I'm correct in saying 4 gallons of peanut oil, and use peanut oil. And the reason people who are cooks out there know why you use peanut oil.
Why?
Because it has I don't know how to describe it, lower or higher burn point, so you can bring it up to a high. It doesn't burn. It doesn't burn as easily as other oils. It also has a very nice flavor, by the way. So your huge amount of peanut oil needs to be used. And the big trick with this, like the only difficulty with this, is that it'll take probably 2 or 3 hours for the oil to come to a boil.
But you remember the one thing you were going to say was the peanut oil is, then at the end of this you're left with this jar of peanut oil,
huge amount,
and we were tripping over it in the house for months, years.
I thought I could recycle it and use it every now and again, and then it's too much.
Yes.
And funny, I looked up a recipe on the New York Times for doing this deep fat fried turkey, and they said, go to your local restaurant and see if they have a recycling system. And I'm thinking, nobody's going to take oil from some stranger. But anyway, either way, look at us doing this thing here. Now, one of the things that's very important is, first of all, you definitely do this outside. You do not do this inside your house. And you probably should definitely have a fire blanket somewhere nearby. The other thing to say is you want to have your turkey super, super dry. You dry. So if you've brined the turkey, which is always a good idea to brine the turkey, for a couple of days prior to cooking it. After that, you definitely need to dry. Make sure it's very, very dry, because obviously water and oil. You know what I mean? Then the next thing you do is, you can see the way you hook it up there. You want to lower
water and oil.
Well, no, because it'll kind of explode. It'll have such an effect on when it hits the surface.
Good to know.
So what you then do is, and you can see it here, and actually this fryer, it's perfectly well done. You have, and we had Magda's husband was very helpful here. You want to lower that down very, very slowly into the oil, and you can see us doing that right now. Lowering it down slow until it gets down underneath the surface, and see the way the thing is boiling up around there, and then put the lid on and walk away. And obviously you need to look at the timing and all of that. But and I don't have the timings right in front of me right now, but I'll put them up in the show notes. But the thing that really is important, and that information is available, but the thing that I think is amazing, if you see that turkey there, which is a really sizable turkey, because we were a big crowd that night.
That's right.
We cooked this turkey in just over an hour. And can I say that a lot of people around were very skeptical. In fact, so skeptical that the people whose house we did this in had actually got a backup dinner already in case the turkey was inedible.
Ooh.
But it actually turned out really, really nice. And what's lovely is you get super, super crispy skin, and then inside
super moist.
It's really super moist, because that's always the problem with turkey. So I would highly recommend it. I mean, it's a little bit of a, I suppose the turkey itself isn't expensive, right? But then the oil is definitely expensive if you're getting 4 gallons of peanut oil. But it was really, really delicious and kind of a fun thing to do. But obviously, if you've got children or whatever around, be really, really careful.
Yes.
Don't do it indoors. Have a fire blanket, and obviously lower it in really, really slowly. And I would say enjoy your Christmas, whatever you're going to cook. This year, I think we're not going to be doing turkey. We are going to do, I think we're doing duck this year. And we will bring pictures of said duck to your attention in the new year.
Okay, well, have a very, very peaceful and Merry Christmas. And we're going to be releasing some shows over the holidays, but we will see you in person. Live, as they say.
Yes, and as you make your preparations for the new year and coming to the end of the year, please do remember us. We are the Unreported Story Society. We are a 501c3 not-for-profit, and we are dependent on the kindness of strangers. And by the way, you strangers that we haven't met, we love you, and we are very appreciative of all of the donations that have come in to keep the show on the road.
We're also very appreciative of your comments in the YouTube, YouTube and on the Apple Podcast app. So please keep leaving the comments. We do read them all. We might not respond to them all, but we do read them all. And we listen to you as well. Actually, I remember I wanted to say, there was a woman who wrote and said, please stop using the word God.
Oh, yes.
And
in vain.
In vain. You stop saying the word God, because people get offended by it. And we were thinking about it, and actually it's an Irish thing. In the Irish language, and which is trickled into the English language, you can't. The word God is used a lot.
You can't say hello in Irish without saying God.
Yeah,
you can't say goodbye without saying God.
So God, to say hello with God is 𝙎𝙘𝙤𝙀 and 𝙎 is 𝙤𝙤𝙀, and that is God be with you. Hello.
So you say to somebody hello, and it's God be with you, and then their answer is God and Mary be with you. And by the way, if there's a crowd, it starts to get it's kind of funny, because you keep on adding saints basically.
Yes.
So you up the person with each greeting. You're upping the person with adding extra saints.
So we don't want to offend anyone by using it. We'll try and not use the word God as much, but that's the way we were brought up.
It's funny that there is sensitivities in language in America that just do not exist in Ireland. Now, Ireland, by the way, is another extreme. By the way, people use extremely bad language, including myself, I have to say.
Yes.
And I'm going to
not on the podcast, though.
Not on the podcast, but I'm going to try to be better. But I do remember giving a speech one time down in somewhere somewhere, and meeting a lady that I was very friendly with at the event, and just chatting to her beforehand. And I had just been to Philadelphia. I'd been to Temple University, where a girl had gone nuts basically, and called me an idiot with a curse on front of it.
Well, she used the word God and damned.
And I told this woman that story, and she kind of blanched immediately and said, well, you're not going to tell that story. And I thought, and I genuinely, because I'm from Ireland, I genuinely didn't know what she was referring to. I couldn't understand what it was that I shouldn't tell. And it turned out that God and damn in the same sentence is a problem. Yes. So, we just are not, that's not how we were brought up. So please do excuse us, but we will try and be better.
But please have a good Christmas. Have a great new year. We'll see you in the new year. And don't forget to write those comments, and don't forget to donate to the Unreported Story Society, tax deductible. Get your affairs in order before the end of the year, and help us do what we keep doing. So thank you, and bye.
And actually, I might just add one more thing here, because an interesting thing happened this year. Mm-hmm. We needed someone to help us with the photographic exhibition, and we mentioned it in the podcast, and we found the perfect person to do that.
We found our doo-wop.
What's that, doo-wop going?
Disillusioned urban arts professional.
All right. We found our doo-wop, which is Phelim's new phrase, disillusioned urban
arts professional,
emerged from our audience. So I actually want to do a quick at the end of the year, just in case in your circle of friends or you yourself, we are looking for someone to help us with compliance. So I had mentioned there earlier when we were talking about BLM and talking about the 501c3, And we're, we're very grateful for the 501c3 status that we have. It does make a lot of demands on us as an organisation in terms of compliance, and there's a lot of paperwork and there's a lot of that kind of work to be done. If you or someone you know would be interested in that kind of work, please send us a resume. Please get in touch with us, because we would really appreciate the help.
Yes.
And this would be obviously a paid job, and it could be something part-time for somebody,
yes.
but it would be somebody with a background perhaps maybe in accountancy, something like that.
Or compliance.
Or compliance. But
paralegal.
A paralegal. But people who are listening to me who know that world will know exactly what we're talking about. And if you happen to know someone, or you are that person, we would be very grateful to hear from you, because when we asked that last time, when we were looking for the disillusioned urban, what did you say?
A do-up.
A do-up. Disillusioned urban professional.
Urban arts professional.
Arts professional. I thought our chances were slim to find somebody, and we actually found the perfect person.
Could not have been more perfect.
I think it's worth saying. Anyway, that's enough for now. Happy Christmas. And as Americans say, by the way, they say different. We say in Ireland, Happy Christmas, and you guys say Merry Christmas. So Merry Christmas to all, and Happy Christmas to all. And we will see you in the new year.
Bye.
Bye.